Have you ever stopped to wonder if the future is truly written in the stars? Ancient civilizations across the globe believed it was, and among them, one culture stands out for its breathtakingly accurate, eerily specific prophecies that seem to reach across the centuries and speak directly to our modern world. These weren't vague fortunes or mystic guesses. They were precise, timed, and woven into the very fabric of their understanding of time, astronomy, and human destiny. The ancient Maya, a people whose genius in mathematics, writing, and cosmology still astonishes scholars today, left behind a legacy that hints at something almost unbelievable, a foresight so profound it continues to captivate and mystify us. In the jungles of Mesoamerica, the Maya built towering pyramids, charted the movements of planets with impossible accuracy, and developed a calendar system so advanced it remains one of humanity's greatest intellectual achievements. But more than that, they gazed into the future with a clarity that defies easy explanation. 30 of their most startling prophecies appear to have unfolded just as they foresaw, touching on everything from ecological shifts and technological advances to spiritual awakenings and global transformations. These predictions aren't just artifacts of a lost world, they feel alive, resonant, and deeply relevant, as though the Maya were not merely observers of time, but interpreters of its deepest rhythms. This isn't just a story about prophecies, it's an invitation to step into a mystery that bridges worlds and epochs. Together, we're going to explore these 30 astonishing predictions, how they align with events we've witnessed, and what they might tell us about the road ahead. It's a journey into wonder, into questions that have no easy answers, and into the mind of a civilization that saw time not as a straight line, but as a sacred cycle. Whether you're a skeptic or a seeker, what you're about to discover may just change how you see history and the future. So lean in, open your mind, and let's travel through time with the Maya. Of all their predictions, none captured the world's imagination quite like the prophecy tied to the end of their long count calendar. For years, leading up to December 21, 2012, a wave of anticipation, and for some, sheer dread swept across the globe. Pop culture and media outlets latched onto the idea of an impending apocalypse, painting a picture of global cataclysm. But what did the Maya actually say? The truth is far more profound, and in many ways, far more relevant to our lives today than any Hollywood doomsday scenario. They didn't predict the end of the world. They foresaw the end of a world age, a monumental shift in the very cycle of time itself. This moment marked the completion of a grand cycle, a breathtakingly vast period of 5,125 years known as the 13th Bacton. For the Maya, time was not a straight line moving from point A to point B. It was a series of great, spiraling cycles, each with its own beginning, its own energy, and its own conclusion. The end of such a cycle was never about destruction for its own sake. It was about transformation. It was the cosmic equivalent of a great reset, a chance for humanity to step into a new phase of its existence. Think of it not as a period on a sentence, but as a turning of a page to an entirely new chapter in the story of human consciousness. And when we look back at the years surrounding 2012, it's startling how many profound shifts began to accelerate right on that predicted schedule. This period saw the undeniable escalation of the climate crisis, with extreme weather events becoming more frequent and intense, a global awakening to our impact on the planet that mirrors the Maya's deep connection to and warnings about the natural world. We witnessed the true dawn of the digital age, a technological revolution that has connected humanity in ways previously unimaginable, fundamentally altering how we communicate, share information, and perceive reality. Social media movements sparked global conversations about justice and equality, representing a massive shift in collective awareness. This wasn't a single day of fire and brimstone. It was the beginning of a powerful transition. The prophecy spoke of a time of great change, where old structures would be challenged and new paradigms would emerge. It aligns with a feeling many of us share, that we are living in a time between worlds, where the old ways of thinking and being are no longer sustainable, making space for something new to be born. The Maya understood that such transitions are rarely comfortable, but they are necessary for growth. The end of their calendar wasn't a deadline for doom, but a starting line for a new human journey. This uncanny accuracy in the Mayan foresight becomes even more apparent when we turn to their prophecies concerning foreign visitors. Long before Spanish sails appeared on the horizon, Mayan texts and oral traditions spoke of the arrival of pale-skinned beings from the direction of the rising sun. These weren't vague notions of strangers. They were specific, almost clinical descriptions that align with historical reality in a way that is difficult to dismiss as mere coincidence. The texts told of men with light skin and beards, a physical description wholly unlike the indigenous people of the Americas, crossing a great expanse of water in enormous floating houses. To a civilization that had no knowledge of large European sailing vessels, describing a Spanish galleon as a floating house is a remarkably apt and logical comparison. The descriptions went even further, detailing the strange, hard coverings these men wore on their bodies, a clear reference to the metal armor and helmets of the conquistadors, which would have been an utterly alien and terrifying sight. Their weapons were said to bring thunder and smoke, an unmistakable depiction of the arquebuses and cannons that the Spanish employed. For the Maya, who fought with obsidian-bladed weapons and spears, the sound and power of gunpowder weapons could only be explained as supernatural or elemental forces. This prophecy captures the very essence of that first, fateful contact: the shock, the technological disparity, and the profound cultural collision that would follow. What makes this prediction so compelling is its timing and its chilling foresight into the consequences of this arrival. These prophecies weren't recorded in the aftermath of the conquest as a way to make sense of the tragedy. They existed within the Mayan cultural memory long before. They spoke not just of the arrival itself, but of the profound change these beings would bring. The texts often carried a tone of foreboding, suggesting that this event would mark a great turning point, an irreversible shift in their world. This wasn't a prophecy of a friendly cultural exchange. It was a prediction of a seismic event that would shatter their civilization. When Hernán Cortés and his men landed on the shores of the Yucatan Peninsula in 1519, they were, from a Mayan cosmological perspective, living out a destiny that had been foreseen for generations. The accurate details, the direction of their travel, their appearance, their technology transformed this prophecy from a general myth into something far more specific and unsettling. It forces us to consider how the Maya, through their intricate understanding of cyclical time, might have been able to extrapolate future events with such precision, seeing the patterns of history repeat in a way that allowed them to anticipate this pivotal moment of contact. Perhaps one of the most heartbreaking and historically verifiable of the Mayan prophecies was their foresight that their sacred knowledge would be systematically destroyed by foreign invaders. This was not a vague warning of hard times. It was a specific prediction that the very heart of their culture, their books, their histories, their scientific and spiritual wisdom would be targeted and burned. The Maya placed immense value on their codices, which were far more than simple books. These beautifully illustrated screenfold texts, painted on amate bark paper and coated with a fine layer of lime plaster, were repositories of 1,000 years of learning. They contained the precise movements of Venus, advanced mathematical formulas, intricate calendars that stretched millennia into the future, detailed records of dynastic histories, and sacred rituals for communicating with the gods. To lose them was to lose their connection to the cosmos, their identity, and their intellectual soul. This grim prediction found its fulfillment in the year 1562, in the town of Mani in the Yucatan. It was here that the Franciscan bishop Diego de Landa, a man driven by a zeal to eradicate what he deemed pagan idolatry, presided over a massive auto da fe. Convinced he was saving the Maya from damnation, Landa ordered the gathering and public burning of every Mayan codex his priests could seize. Historical accounts describe a gigantic bonfire, fueled by thousands of these irreplaceable manuscripts. The flames consumed not just painted pages, but entire fields of knowledge, astronomical data that could have rewritten our understanding of pre-telescopic science, historical records of kings and queens whose names are now lost, and philosophical texts that might have offered a completely different perspective on the nature of time and divinity. In a single, destructive act, Landa sought to erase the memory of a civilization. The profound tragedy is that this act of cultural annihilation was so complete. Of the thousands of codices that once filled the libraries of Mayan cities, only 4 are known to have survived the centuries, likely hidden away by Mayan scribes who risked everything to preserve a fragment of their heritage. The Dresden, Madrid, Paris, and Grolier codices are now precious, lonely survivors, their complex glyph still only partially understood by scholars. They are a haunting reminder of what was lost. The prophecy of this destruction demonstrates a terrifying level of foresight. It suggests the Maya understood the pattern of conquest, that invaders wouldn't just seek land or gold, but would aim to dismantle a culture's world by destroying its most sacred texts, a tactic of conquest and control that has, tragically, been repeated throughout human history. This event solidifies the Mayan prophecies as something far beyond lucky guesses. It connects a specific, culturally devastating event, the burning of books, with a prediction made generations before the perpetrators were even born. The loss of these codices created a void in our understanding of the Americas, a silence where there should have been a chorus of voices. It makes the accuracy of their other predictions all the more astonishing, because we are left to wonder, if we had all their books, what other future events did they foresee that we have yet to discover? Yet from the ashes of that destruction in Mani, another extraordinary prophecy emerged, one that speaks to the resilience of truth and the endurance of memory. The Maya foretold a time, far in the future, when their silenced voices would be heard again. They predicted the eventual return of their knowledge keepers, not in the form of returning gods or ancient priests, but through dedicated individuals who would feel a deep, almost spiritual calling to piece their world back together. This was a prophecy of reclamation, a belief that their wisdom was not truly lost, but merely dormant, waiting for the right cycle of time to be awakened and understood once more. This prediction has found its breathtaking fulfillment in the quiet, determined work of modern archaeologists, linguists, and anthropologists over the last century. For generations, the Mayan script was considered an impenetrable mystery, a beautiful but unreadable collection of glyphs. The prevailing belief among scholars was that the glyphs were merely primitive pictograms, not a true writing system capable of conveying complex historical and astronomical narratives. The breakthrough began in the 1950s and 60s, a painstaking process of decipherment led by a handful of brilliant, obsessed individuals. The Russian linguist Yuri Norisov, working from photographs of the surviving codices in the isolation of the Soviet Union, was the first to prove conclusively that Mayan writing was a logosyllabic system, a sophisticated blend of syllabic signs and logograms. His work, initially met with skepticism, paved the way for others. The process of decipherment exploded in the 1970s and 80s, becoming one of the greatest intellectual detective stories of our time. Scholars like Linda Scheel and David Stewart didn't just crack a code, they unlocked a library. They realized that the glyphs on stelae and temple walls were not just lists of kings' names and dates, but vivid accounts of political alliances, royal ceremonies, warfare, and profound philosophical beliefs. A single altar or staircase could reveal the entire history of a dynasty. This was the prophecy in action. The knowledge keepers had arrived, and they were reading the words the Maya themselves had left behind. The silence was being broken, glyph by glyph, word by word. This reclamation extends far beyond just reading ancient texts. It's a revival of an entire worldview. Archaeologists, using LiDAR technology to peer through the dense jungle canopy, are discovering lost cities at an astonishing rate, rewriting the map of the Mayan civilization and revealing it to be far more populous and interconnected than anyone imagined. Astronomers now look to the Dresden Codex, recognizing its Venus tables as a work of unparalleled precision, accurate across a 500-year cycle. Most importantly, this prophecy is being fulfilled by the Maya themselves. Descendant communities across Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, and Honduras are actively revitalizing their languages, relearning the ancient calendars from the remaining codices, and reintegrating this spiritual and ecological wisdom into their cultural practices. The knowledge keepers are not just foreign academics, they are the direct heirs to that wisdom, finally able to access the intellectual legacy that was nearly stolen from them forever. And yet, the Maya's prophetic vision extended far beyond the cycles of human history and deep into the very rhythms of the Earth itself. Their extraordinary understanding of climate patterns stands as one of the most scientifically verified and chillingly accurate of all their predictions. We often think of climate science as a modern invention, born of satellite data and complex computer models. But the Maya developed a profound, long-term forecast of environmental change, using nothing more than meticulous observation of the sky and the sophisticated application of their calendar systems. Their predictions weren't about vague weather patterns. They were precise, multi-generational prophecies concerning periods of severe drought and abundance that would determine the very fate of their civilization. This predictive power was rooted in their unparalleled astronomical tracking. They understood that celestial bodies, particularly Venus and the Sun, exerted a powerful influence on Earth's climate. By charting the synodic cycles of Venus, its precise 584-day journey as it appears from Earth, they began to correlate its positions with specific weather phenomena. Their observations were so precise that the Venus tables in the Dresden Codex remain accurate to within a single day over a span of 500 years. They noticed that when Venus appeared as the morning star in certain positions on the horizon during key times of the agricultural year, it often preceded shifts in atmospheric pressure and wind patterns that could lead to either life-giving rains or prolonged dry spells. They were, in effect, drawing a direct line from the mechanics of the cosmos to the climate of their world. This celestial data was then integrated into their larger calendar cycles, creating a grand unified theory of time and environment. The Maya viewed time not in isolated years, but in great, overlapping wheels of it. The key to their climate prophecy lies in the interaction between the 260-day sacred round, the 365-day vague year, and the 52-year calendar round. They believed that certain alignments of these cycles, which repeated every 52 years, marked points of potential ecological stress, but their most profound insights came from the long count, which allowed them to track much longer patterns. They identified recurring periods of megadroughts, devastating dry periods that could last for decades, and predicted their return with astonishing accuracy. For a long time, modern scholars viewed these prophecies as purely mythological or religious. That changed with the advent of advanced geological and archaeological techniques. By taking core samples from lake beds and examining layers of sediment in the Yucatan Peninsula, paleoclimatologists can now read the history of rainfall and drought with incredible precision. Thick layers of sediment indicate years of heavy rain, while thin, mineral-dense layers signal periods of extreme aridity. What these geological fingerprints reveal is nothing short of astounding. The data shows a series of catastrophic megadroughts that struck the Maya world, and their timing aligns perfectly with the collapse points predicted by the long count calendar and documented in Mayan texts as times of great famine and social upheaval. The most severe of these droughts occurred during the 9th century, a period that historians now call the classic Maya collapse. The geological record shows a dramatic drop in rainfall that would have persisted for generations, leading to failed crops, dwindling water supplies in their vast reservoir systems, and ultimately, the abandonment of mighty cities like Tikal and Capan. Mayan inscriptions from this era speak of these events not as random disasters, but as foreseen ecological turning points. Their prophecies had warned of a time when the sky would be held up, a poetic but precise description of the high-pressure systems that prevent rain clouds from forming over the region. This wasn't a superstition. It was a sophisticated model of environmental science, encoded in their calendar and borne out by the very stone and soil they walked upon. What makes this prophecy so resonant today is its terrifying relevance. The Maya understood that civilization is inextricably linked to the environment, and that long-term climate cycles could pose an existential threat. They predicted these patterns centuries in advance, giving their leaders and priests the knowledge to prepare to store extra food, manage water resources with immense care, and perhaps psychologically brace their people for hard times. In many ways, their prophecy was an early warning system, a call to adapt and respect the natural world. Their accurate foresight, now confirmed by hard data, forces us to acknowledge that ancient wisdom can sometimes see the patterns that our own modern myopia often misses. They looked at the stars and saw the future of their reign, a lesson in planetary interconnectedness that we are only now, with all our technology, beginning to fully comprehend. Moving from their foresight of the Earth's climate, the Maya also demonstrated an almost prescient understanding of a completely different realm, the invisible architecture of human connection. One of their most staggering prophecies describes a future where people would communicate not through physical messengers or visible signals, but through a vast, unseen web, allowing minds to share knowledge and images instantly across the entire world. To a civilization where information traveled at the speed of a runner or a drum signal, this concept of instantaneous global connection would have seemed like pure magic, the domain of gods rather than mortals. Their texts speak of this phenomenon using beautifully abstract yet precise terms, often referring to it as the invisible roads of the mind, or a great net that catches all voices. They envisioned a time when human thought could be captured, stored, and then flung across immense distances to be immediately understood by another person, regardless of the mountains, jungles, or oceans that lay between them. This description is a breathtakingly accurate metaphor for the internet and our global telecommunication networks. The Great Net evokes the very structure of the World Wide Web, while catching all voices perfectly encapsulates the nature of social media, messaging apps, and digital content where every individual can broadcast their thoughts to a global audience. What makes this prophecy so compelling is that it goes beyond a simple description of faster communication. The Maya texts delve into the societal and psychological implications of this network, predicting that it would lead to an explosion of shared human knowledge, but also to a period of great confusion and misinformation. They foresaw that this tool would empower both wisdom and falsehoods with equal speed, creating a world where discerning truth would become a new and critical challenge for humanity. This duality shows a profound understanding of technology, that it is never purely good or evil, but a powerful amplifier of human intention, capable of both uniting societies and fragmenting them. When we look at our modern reality, the alignment is simply uncanny. The internet is the literal fulfillment of this ancient vision, a digital realm built on pulses of light traveling through fiber optic cables, the true, invisible roads that circle the globe. We now instantly share not just words, but live video, complex data, and entire libraries of information with anyone, anywhere, at any time. The Maya prediction of a shared global knowledge repository is our Wikipedia, our online academic journals, and our digital archives. Their warning about the spread of confusion mirrors our current battles with viral misinformation, echo chambers, and digital propaganda. This prophecy stands as a powerful testament to the Maya's unique perception of time and progress. They didn't view technological advancement as a linear path from primitive to complex. Instead, they saw it as a potentiality already present within the cycles of existence, waiting for the right moment to manifest. Their accurate foresight into the nature of our digital age suggests they understood a fundamental principle of connectivity, that the human desire to share, communicate, and belong would eventually forge its own tools, creating a nervous system for the entire planet that they, from their jungle cities, were somehow able to perceive centuries before the first computer was ever conceived. Their predictive power in the celestial realm reaches its absolute zenith with their staggering ability to foretell eclipses. While many ancient cultures feared these events as chaotic omens, the Maya approached them with the cool, analytical precision of master mathematicians. They didn't just make rough estimates, they calculated the exact timing of solar and lunar eclipses centuries into the future with an accuracy that rivals our modern computational power, seeing these dramatic celestial alignments not as disruptions, but as the flawless, predictable mechanics of a cosmic clock they had learned to read. This incredible feat was made possible by their discovery and meticulous tracking of what astronomers now call the eclipse cycle, or the Saros cycle. This is a period of approximately 6,585 and 1/3 days or 18 years, 11 days and 8 hours, after which the Sun, Earth, and Moon return to nearly the same relative geometry, and a nearly identical eclipse will occur. The Maya identified this cycle independently, integrating it seamlessly into their complex calendar systems. They understood that eclipses could only occur during specific nodes, points where the path of the moon crossed the path of the sun, and they tracked these nodes with painstaking care. Their primary tool for this was the Dresden Codex, which contains pages dedicated specifically to predicting the danger periods for eclipses, presented in a series of intervals that allowed priests to know when these celestial events were not just possible, but probable. The proof of their success is in the numbers. Modern astronomers, using sophisticated software that accounts for the gradual slowing of Earth's rotation, can calculate the exact timing of historical eclipses. When these retro calculations are compared to the eclipse warnings in the Mayan records, the alignment is nothing short of breathtaking. The tables in the Dresden Codex successfully predict eclipses that would have been visible in the Yucatan Peninsula, with an accuracy that typically falls within a single day, and sometimes within hours. This level of precision, achieved over 1,000 years before the invention of the telescope, is a monumental intellectual achievement. It means a Mayan astronomer priest could have confidently warned his people of an impending eclipse that would darken the sun decades after his own death, an act that would have cemented his authority as a true master of cosmic time. This profound knowledge was deeply woven into the fabric of their society. For the Maya, accurately predicting an eclipse was the ultimate demonstration of their connection to the divine order. It was proof that they could understand the minds of the gods and anticipate their actions. This wasn't merely academic, it was a source of immense political and spiritual power. A ruler who could publicly announce the precise moment the sun would be swallowed by the shadow of the moon demonstrated an undeniable mandate from the heavens. This command of celestial mechanics allowed them to quell panic, plan important rituals, and reinforce the central belief that their civilization existed in a harmonious, knowable relationship with the cosmos. Their calculations were so reliable that they even accounted for the different types of eclipses, partial, annular, and total, understanding the varying degrees of the moon's obscuration of the sun. The enduring legacy of their astronomical genius is that their calculations still hold up. In the quiet halls of modern observatories, the data points pulled from ancient bark paper books continue to affirm a truth we are only now fully appreciating. The Maya were peerless scientists of the sky. Their celestial prophecies stand as a permanent testament to human ingenuity, proving that with careful observation, dedicated record-keeping, and a brilliant mathematical framework, the deepest rhythms of the universe can be understood, mapped, and predicted. They looked up at the vast, star-filled night and saw not chaos, but an exquisite, predictable order, a vision of cosmic harmony that we, with all our technology, are still striving to match. This profound shift in awareness extends far beyond the end of a calendar. It speaks to the very core of a Mayan prophecy that envisioned a global awakening of human consciousness. They foresaw a period where humanity would begin to perceive itself not as a collection of separate tribes or nations, but as a single, interconnected entity, a collective mind waking up to its own potential and its shared responsibility for the planet. This prediction of a mass spiritual and intellectual evolution aligns with an extraordinary number of contemporary movements that have gained unprecedented momentum since the turn of the millennium, particularly around that pivotal 2012 marker. What we are witnessing is a fundamental reorientation of human priorities. The prophecy suggested a move away from purely materialistic and divisive paradigms toward a greater emphasis on unity, compassion, and holistic understanding. This is vividly reflected in the explosive global growth of mindfulness and meditation practices, which have moved from the fringes into corporate boardrooms, schools, and healthcare systems, all aimed at cultivating a deeper sense of inner peace and emotional intelligence on a societal scale. The surge in environmental awareness, from the youth-led climate strikes to the mainstream adoption of sustainable living, echoes the Mayan reverence for the natural world, signaling a collective understanding that the Earth is not a resource to be exploited, but a living system to which we belong. A critical driver of this awakening, and a stunning validation of the prophecy, is the role of technology itself. The Maya spoke of a great net connecting humanity, and our digital age has made this a literal reality. Social media platforms, for all their complexities, have become the nervous system of this global consciousness, enabling the instantaneous spread of ideas and the rapid formation of international communities around shared values. A viral video documenting environmental damage in one hemisphere can spark protests and policy debates in another within hours. Online learning platforms have democratized access to ancient wisdom and new scientific discoveries, allowing millions to explore different spiritual traditions and philosophical viewpoints that were once inaccessible. This technological web has provided the infrastructure for the very collective mind the Maya described. This shift is not without its challenges, a nuance the prophecy itself seemed to acknowledge by framing it as a period of both great potential and great confusion. The same networks that spread empowering ideas can also amplify fear and division, forcing humanity to develop a new level of discernment. This tension is a necessary part of the growth process, a collective growing pain as we learn to navigate our interconnectedness. The awakening isn't about achieving a uniform state of bliss. It's about expanding our capacity for empathy, deepening our curiosity about the universe, and recognizing that our individual actions contribute to a larger whole. The Maya didn't predict an end point, but a beginning, the start of a new cycle for humanity where our greatest task is to learn how to wield our connected power with wisdom, foresight, and a renewed sense of shared destiny. Their profound connection to the natural world granted them an equally unsettling foresight into the very stability of the planet itself. The Maya prophesied a future marked by what they called the Earth becoming restless, a time of increasing tremors, violent storms, and a general unbalancing of the global climate. Their texts describe these events not as random acts of nature, but as the direct consequences of humanity falling out of harmony with the world, a disruption in the sacred balance that would manifest physically through the land and the sky. For a civilization that meticulously recorded the rhythms of the planet, this prediction was a logical extension of their observations, a forecast of a coming era where those rhythms would become dangerously erratic. This ancient warning finds a sobering resonance in the data compiled by modern science. Seismologists have documented a measurable increase in the frequency of major earthquakes over the last century, particularly in the planet's most active zones. While some of this increase can be attributed to better detection technology, the statistical trend toward more frequent high-magnitude events is a reality that aligns with the Mayan vision of a restless Earth. Their prophecies spoke of the ground shivering with greater intensity, a poetic yet precise description that mirrors our own charts and graphs tracking the release of pent-up tectonic energy across the globe. Perhaps the most undeniable fulfillment of this prophecy lies in the realm of climate. The Maya predicted periods of great heat and great cold, arriving out of their expected seasons, alongside storms of unprecedented fury. This is a near-perfect characterization of what we now term climate change and the increase in extreme weather events. The rising global temperatures, the intensification of hurricanes fueled by warmer ocean waters, the severe droughts parching one continent while another experiences catastrophic flooding, all of it was seemingly foreseen. Their texts even detail changes in animal migration patterns and the bleaching of the stone of the sea, an astonishingly accurate metaphor for the coral bleaching events that are devastating marine ecosystems due to rising ocean temperatures and acidity. What makes this prophecy so compelling is its proposed cause. The Maya believed these earth changes were not arbitrary punishments from angry gods, but the direct result of a broken relationship between humanity and nature. They saw the world as a living, conscious entity, and when humans operated with greed, disrespect, and short-sightedness, it created a sickness that manifested in the environment. This perspective is remarkably aligned with the modern scientific understanding of how human activity, deforestation, fossil fuel consumption, and industrial pollution directly drives climate change and ecological disruption. The prophecy suggests they understood the concept of a tipping point, a moment where the cumulative impact of our actions would push the planet's systems into a new, unstable state. This foresight transforms their prediction from a simple weather forecast into a profound ecological warning. They weren't just saying these events would happen, they were implicitly explaining why they would happen. Their message carries an urgent relevance for us today. serving as a timeless reminder that our fate is inextricably linked to the health of the planet. The increasing frequency of natural disasters isn't just a statistical anomaly to be studied. It is, according to this ancient wisdom, the physical symptom of a deeper imbalance, a call from the earth itself to restore the harmony that we have disrupted. One of the most democratic and transformative of the Mayan visions foretold the dawn of an era they described as the Great Leveling of Wisdom. This was a prophecy that spoke of a fundamental shift in the very structure of society, where the sacred knowledge once hoarded by priests and nobles in towering temple sanctuaries would eventually flow freely, becoming accessible to every individual, regardless of their birth or status. They envisioned a future where the gates of learning would be thrown open, empowering the common person with an understanding of the world that was once the exclusive domain of a powerful, educated elite. For a civilization structured around highly stratified classes, this was a radical prediction of a social revolution centuries in the making. This prophecy finds its most perfect and profound fulfillment in the invention and explosive growth of the Internet. The World Wide Web is the ultimate great leveler, a technological marvel that has democratized information on a scale the Maya could scarcely have imagined, yet described with eerie accuracy. Their text spoke of a time when the word would be freed from the stone, a powerful metaphor for liberating knowledge from its static, physical confines like the carved stelae that only the literate elite could interpret, and releasing it into a dynamic, ubiquitous, and intangible realm where it could be instantly accessed by anyone. This is the digital age in a nutshell, an infinite, ever-expanding library that fits in the palm of your hand, where the sum total of human achievement, from ancient philosophical texts to cutting-edge scientific research, is available to a curious child in a remote village just as easily as to a professor at a world-renowned university. The mechanisms of this transformation are all around us, serving as the living proof of this ancient prediction. Public library systems, once physical repositories of books, have now expanded into digital portals offering free access to academic journals, language learning software, and historical archives. Universities across the globe publish staggering amounts of their coursework, lectures, and research findings online for free through initiatives like OpenCourseWare, effectively allowing anyone with a connection to receive a world-class education. Platforms like Wikipedia represent a collective, crowdsourced encyclopedia, a project of shared human knowledge that embodies the Mayan ideal of communal wisdom. Even specialized skills, from mastering a craft to learning to code, are now taught through vast online tutorials and video platforms, dismantling the traditional gatekeepers of education and trade guilds. The societal impact of this shift is exactly what the Maya foresaw: a massive empowerment of the individual and a challenging of entrenched power structures. When knowledge is no longer a scarce commodity controlled by a few, it redistributes influence and opportunity. It enables grassroots movements to organize with sophisticated strategy, allows citizens to fact-check their governments in real time, and gives entrepreneurs in developing nations the tools to build global businesses. This leveling hasn't just changed how we learn, it has fundamentally altered the balance of power in societies around the world, creating a more informed, engaged, and potentially skeptical populace. The Maya understood that true power derives from knowledge, and by predicting its democratization, they foresaw one of the most significant and empowering shifts in all of human history. Their visionary understanding of the world extended even to the very concept of travel, with prophecies that described a revolution in human mobility, so profound it would fundamentally reshape our relationship with distance and geography. The Maya texts speak of a future where the beasts of burden would be set free, and humanity would create chariots that moved with their own inner fire, traversing the world on stone rivers that stretched to the horizon. To a civilization that relied on human porters and knew travel as a slow, arduous undertaking, the idea of vehicles powered by an internal, combustion-like energy was a staggering leap of imagination. Their descriptions are not of vague, magical floating devices, but of tangible, mechanical contrivances with wheels and precisely defined paths. a clear and eerily accurate premonition of the automobile and the vast network of paved highways that would one day cover the planet. This foresight becomes even more astonishing when it soars into the skies. Their records contain passages that have long puzzled scholars, describing great birds made of shining rock that would carry people through the air, high above the clouds, and fire-tailed serpents that would climb into the heavens and journey toward the stars. The terminology is metaphoric, as was their custom, but the underlying images are unmistakable. The great birds made of shining rock perfectly captures the essence of modern aircraft, their metallic, alloyed bodies gleaming in the sun as they glide through the atmosphere. The fire-tailed serpents is an even more precise depiction of rocket launches, with their long, sinuous bodies and brilliant plumes of fire, and exhaust trailing behind them as they ascend on a column of energy, pushing past the sky itself. What makes these descriptions so compelling is their grounding in a logical, almost technological, progression. The Maya didn't just predict flying, they predicted the means of flight. They spoke of these vessels being guided by complex star charts held within, a breathtaking allusion to the sophisticated navigational computers and GPS systems that pilot our planes and spacecraft today. Their prophecies even touched upon the societal impact of this transportation revolution, predicting that these advancements would shrink the world, bringing distant cultures and peoples into close contact. They foresaw the globalized society we live in today, where a journey that once took months can be completed in hours, and where the exchange of goods, ideas, and people happens at a pace they could scarcely have dreamed of, yet somehow accurately foretold. This particular prophecy stands as a powerful testament to the Maya's unique mode of thought. They weren't merely guessing about the future. They were extrapolating it based on their deep understanding of human ingenuity and the cyclical nature of discovery. They observed humanity's relentless drive to master its environment, to build, to explore, to overcome physical limitations, and projected that trajectory forward across the centuries. Their accurate vision of cars, planes, and rockets suggests they understood a fundamental truth: that technology is an extension of human will, a tool we would inevitably forge to conquer the barriers of land, sea, and sky, fulfilling an ancient desire for freedom of movement that they themselves, building their cities in the challenging jungle terrain, would have understood all too well. Even in the realm of medicine and the human body, a domain we consider the pinnacle of modern science, the Maya demonstrated a foresight that borders on the clairvoyant. Their texts contain a remarkable prophecy that speaks of a future age of healing, a time when human life would be extended far beyond its natural span through revolutionary methods that would have seemed like pure sorcery in their own era. They described a shift from treating the symptoms of illness with herbs and rituals to a new form of medicine that would target the invisible, root causes of disease, a concept that perfectly encapsulates the germ theory of medicine that forms the bedrock of our modern healthcare. Their descriptions of these future healing arts are chillingly specific. They wrote of seeing the unseen world, of identifying and combating tiny, malevolent spirits too small for the naked eye to perceive. This is an unmistakable parallel to our discovery of bacteria and viruses through the microscope. The idea of fighting invisible entities that cause sickness and death was a profound leap of logic for a civilization with no knowledge of microbiology, yet they predicted it with stunning accuracy. They even detailed the creation of potions designed to train the body's own defenses to recognize and destroy these microscopic invaders, a precise description of how vaccines function, priming the immune system to fight off specific diseases before they can take hold. The prophecies went further, venturing into the territory of complex surgery. Mayan texts speak of healers who would enter the body to repair it from within, using incredibly sharp, luminous tools to perform intricate procedures without causing undue harm. This evokes images of our modern operating theaters, with their laser-guided scalpels, laparoscopic instruments, and minimally invasive surgery that allows for repairs with minimal external scarring. They even alluded to the use of powerful substances that could induce a deep, dreamless sleep, allowing these internal repairs to happen without pain or awareness, a clear foreshadowing of modern chemical anesthesia, which was utterly unknown in the ancient world. Perhaps the most compelling evidence for this prophecy's fulfillment is the most measurable of all: global life expectancy. For the vast majority of human history, including the Maya's own time, the average person was fortunate to live into their 30s or 40s. Life was brutally cut short by infection, injury, and pandemics. The Maya foresaw a dramatic reversal of this reality, predicting a time when living to a great, ripe old age would become the norm rather than the exception. This is exactly what the data shows today. Due to the very advancements they described, antibiotics that conquer bacterial infections, vaccines that eradicate deadly viruses, advanced surgical techniques that repair damaged organs, and public health measures that ensure clean water and sanitation, global average life expectancy has more than doubled since the Industrial Revolution, now sitting well over 70 years in most of the world. The prophecy wasn't just about fancy tools, it was about the tangible outcome of those tools, a fundamental extension of the human lifespan, a victory over the ancient enemies of disease and decay that they themselves could only combat with limited means. Their vision demonstrates an understanding that the greatest medical revolution would not be in simply treating illness, but in preventing it altogether and granting humanity decades of life that previous generations could only have dreamed of. Perhaps the most sobering and urgently relevant of all the Mayan insights are their prophecies concerning environmental degradation, a series of warnings that read less like mystical predictions and more like a precise, millennia-old diagnosis of the planetary crisis we face today. Their texts speak with a chilling clarity about a future time when humanity would fall out of balance with the natural world, a period where the sacred relationship between people and the planet would be severed, leading to sickness in the land, the water, and the air itself. They described rivers that would run with a bitter taste, forests that would fall and not regrow, and skies that would grow heavy and difficult to breathe. For a civilization that saw the Earth as a living, conscious being, these were not abstract concerns. They were symptoms of a profound spiritual and ecological illness. This vision of polluted waters is one of the most starkly accurate elements of their foresight. The Maya revered cenotes, those deep, natural sinkholes that provided their only source of fresh water in the Yucatan, as sacred portals to the underworld and the very lifeblood of their communities. Their prophecies warned that these vital waters would one day be poisoned by the refuse of man's ambition, becoming undrinkable and unable to support life. Today, we see this prophecy fulfilled in the widespread contamination of global water systems. Industrial waste, agricultural runoff saturated with pesticides and fertilizers, and vast islands of plastic debris floating in our oceans are the modern manifestations of that refuse. The Maya foresaw a time when our own technological and industrial progress would inadvertently turn the source of life into a carrier of toxins, a prediction that mirrors our contemporary struggles with water pollution and the global challenge of providing clean drinking water to all. Their warnings about deforestation are equally precise and disquieting. The Maya themselves practiced sophisticated agroforestry and understood the delicate balance required to sustain life in the jungle. Their prophecies, however, told of a future where this balance would be shattered by a hunger for resources so great that entire landscapes would be stripped bare. They spoke of the great green cloak of the earth being torn away, leading to the silencing of the animal voices and the hardening of the soil. This is a devastatingly accurate description of the modern clear-cutting of rainforests, particularly in the Amazon basin, often called the lungs of the planet for cattle ranching, logging, and agriculture. The resulting loss of biodiversity, the silencing of entire ecosystems, and the desertification of once fertile land are all captured in their ancient words. They predicted the domino effect of habitat destruction centuries before the term biodiversity loss entered our scientific lexicon. Most astonishing of all is how their prophecies encapsulate the interconnected nature of these crises, understanding that the poisoning of the water, the felling of the forests, and the sickening of the sky were all part of a single, systemic failure. They described a feedback loop where the loss of trees would lead to a great drying, which would in turn lead to more fires and more barren land. This is a prescient understanding of the climate change feedback loops that scientists are now racing to comprehend. Their vision of altered ecosystems extends to the smallest details, including predictions about the disappearance of the hummingbird and the blinding of the coral cities in the sea, which parallel our current realities of pollinator decline and the catastrophic bleaching of coral reefs due to warming, acidifying oceans. The profound power of these prophecies lies not in their doom-laden tone, but in their underlying message of cause and effect. The Maya did not see this degradation as an inevitable fate, but as a direct consequence of human action, or more specifically, a consequence of forgetting our role as stewards within the natural order. Their warning was ultimately a call to remembrance, a plea from the past to recognize that the health of the planet and the health of humanity are one and the same. In their accurate foresight of our current environmental predicament, they left us not just a prediction, but a mirror, challenging us to see the symptoms they described and to finally heed the warning they so clearly articulated. Beyond the realms of medicine and environment, the Maya also cast their prophetic gaze upon the very architecture of human society itself. They envisioned a profound and global transformation in how power is distributed, predicting the eventual unraveling of rigid, hereditary hierarchies and the slow, fitful rise of a system where governance would derive its authority from the consent of the governed. Their texts speak of a future, great turning of the social wheel, a time when the divine right of kings would be challenged and the concentration of power in the hands of a single, unaccountable ruler or a small aristocratic class would be seen as an outdated and unjust model. For a civilization that itself was ruled by powerful, godlike Agi, or holy lords, this was a radical prediction of a social revolution. This vision described a shift away from the absolute monarchies that had dominated human history for millennia. The Maya prophecies did not name these future systems, but their descriptions are unmistakable. They spoke of a form of rule where many voices would choose the path for all, and where leaders would be evaluated by their deeds and not their bloodline. This is a clear parallel to the core principles of democratic and representative governments, where leadership is, in theory, earned through merit and granted legitimacy through elections rather than inherited by birthright. They foresaw the decline of the very dynastic structures that defined their own world and the ancient regimes of Europe, Asia, and Africa. When we examine the arc of global history since the Enlightenment, the alignment with this prophecy is staggering. The period from the late 18th century onward has been defined by this exact social transformation. The American Revolution of 1776 and the French Revolution of 1789 were the first powerful cracks in the foundation of absolutism, each establishing, however imperfectly, the revolutionary idea that authority flows from the people. Throughout the 19th and 20th centuries, this wave of change became a tsunami, sweeping away empires and monarchies across the globe. The fall of the Russian Tsar in 1917, the dissolution of the Ottoman Empire after World War I, and the numerous independence movements that ended colonial rule all reflect this predicted decline of traditional, top-down power structures. The Maya understanding, however, seemed to grasp that this would not be a simple, linear, or peaceful process. Their texts caution that this great turning would be accompanied by periods of great noise and disagreement, as old systems resisted change and new models struggled to find their footing. This accurately captures the immense social turmoil, revolutions, and wars that have accompanied the shift toward democratic ideals. The prophecy wasn't for a utopian, conflict-free transition. It was for a messy, difficult, but ultimately inevitable evolution in human social organization. They saw it as a necessary, if painful, step in humanity's collective maturation. This foresight extends beyond just the mechanism of government to its broader philosophical implications. The Maya predicted that this shift would lead to a greater emphasis on the rights and potential of the individual. They spoke of a time when the value of a single person would be recognized as great, echoing the Enlightenment concepts of individual liberty and human rights that underpin modern democracies. This represents a fundamental departure from the collective, duty-bound identity prevalent in most ancient societies, including their own. Their prophecy suggests they anticipated not just a political change, but a profound shift in human consciousness about self-worth and personal agency. The fulfillment of this vision is still unfolding today. While the world is far from universally democratic, the ideal itself has become a global norm. Even nations that are not fully democratic often feel compelled to pay lip service to its principles, holding elections or establishing legislative bodies to create a facade of popular representation. This widespread acceptance of the idea of democracy as the most legitimate form of government is a testament to the profound societal shift the Maya foresaw. They predicted a world where the mandate to rule would no longer come from the gods or from tradition alone, but would increasingly need to be answered to the people, a transformation that continues to shape our global political landscape in every headline and every election. Their foresight reached even into the most intimate realm of human experience, the quest for meaning and connection. The Maya prophesied a profound spiritual reawakening, a time when humanity would feel a deep, collective yearning to rediscover a sense of the sacred, not by abandoning reason, but by weaving ancient wisdom together with new understanding. They described this not as a return to the past, but as the emergence of a new, more integrated consciousness, a fusion of the intuitive and the analytical that would help heal the perceived rift between spirit and science. This prediction moves beyond mere social change, touching on the very core of how we perceive our place in the universe and our relationship with all life. We are living in the midst of this predicted renewal, and its manifestations are all around us. Modern ecological awareness is a powerful example, embodying this synthesis perfectly. The Mayan worldview never saw humanity as separate from nature. They understood the forest, the water, and the sky as part of a single, living, conscious system. Today, this indigenous perspective is being validated and adopted by contemporary science. Fields like ecology and systems biology now describe the planet in terms of interconnected networks and feedback loops, much like the Maya did. The concept of Gaia Earth as a self-regulating living system is a scientific hypothesis that echoes their ancient spiritual understanding. The global movement to protect rainforests, reduce pollution, and live sustainably isn't just a political stance. For many, it is a deeply spiritual act of reconciliation with the natural world, precisely as the Maya foresaw. This merging of knowledge is equally vibrant in the explosive growth of mindfulness and holistic health. The Maya placed immense value on practices that cultivated inner stillness, connection to the present moment, and the balance of mind, body, and spirit. Their ceremonies, use of sacred plants for healing, and emphasis on dream interpretation were all tools for navigating the inner landscape. Today, the scientific community is rigorously studying these very practices, and the evidence is compelling. Neuroscience uses fMRI scans to show how meditation physically alters brain structure, enhancing regions associated with empathy and emotional regulation. Clinical psychology integrates mindfulness-based stress reduction to treat anxiety and depression, validating ancient techniques with modern data. The use of plant-based medicines like psilocybin, once confined to indigenous ritual, is now being researched in leading universities for their profound potential in treating PTSD and end-of-life anxiety. This isn't a rejection of science, it's its expansion to include dimensions of human experience it previously ignored. The reawakening is also evident in a growing hunger for authentic connection and community, a direct response to the alienation often felt in our hyper-digital, fragmented modern world. The Maya lived in closely knit communities where ritual, storytelling, and shared ceremony reinforced social bonds and a collective identity. Today, we see a surge in people seeking similar connection through new forms of community, from yoga studios and meditation groups to eco-villages and men's and women's circles. These are modern containers for an ancient human need to belong, to share purpose, and to mark life's passages together in a meaningful way. People are consciously choosing to create tribes based on shared values rather than just proximity or birth, seeking the depth of relationship that the Maya understood was essential for a whole and healthy life. This spiritual reawakening is not a uniform, organized movement, but a diverse, grassroots shifting of consciousness. It's the individual choosing to grow their own food, recognizing it as a sacred act of participation with nature. It's the corporate executive who starts a meeting with a moment of silence to center the group. It's the physicist who marvels at the mystical implications of quantum entanglement. The Maya prophecy speaks to this decentralized, personal yet collective yearning to make life meaningful again, to live with a sense of awe and reverence, and to build a future that honors the wisdom of both the heart and the mind. They saw this not as a rejection of progress, but as its necessary evolution, a crucial step toward creating a world that is not only technologically advanced, but also wise, compassionate, and deeply connected. The Maya gaze into the future also saw a revolution in how humanity would feed itself, predicting a time when the very nature of farming would be transformed. Their texts describe a shift away from reliance on the sun and rain alone, toward what they called the building of sunless gardens and the creation of food from stone and water. This wasn't a vision of scarcity, but of ingenious adaptation, a prophecy that we are actively fulfilling today through the rapid advancement of agricultural technology designed to meet the immense challenge of global food security. Their descriptions of these sunless gardens are a breathtakingly accurate premonition of modern controlled environment agriculture. The Maya spoke of vast structures where the climate was perfectly regulated, where the heat of the day and the cool of the night could be summoned at will, and where rain fell only when needed, from silver veins in the ceiling. This is a precise depiction of the sophisticated greenhouse and vertical farming systems now operating in cities worldwide. These facilities use advanced HVAC systems for precise temperature and humidity control, and employ automated, overhead irrigation systems, the silver veins, to deliver nutrient-rich water directly to plant roots without any waste. The Maya even described how these gardens would be stacked, layer upon layer, reaching for the sky, a clear image of the multi-tiered vertical farms that maximize food production in a minimal footprint, turning abandoned warehouses and urban high-rises into lush, productive food centers. At the heart of this prophetic vision lies their concept of growing food from stone and water, an almost perfect metaphor for hydroponics and aeroponics. These soilless farming techniques, where plants receive a carefully balanced cocktail of nutrients dissolved directly in water, would have been unimaginable in an ancient agrarian society. Yet the Maya foresaw it, describing roots that drank not from the earth, but from a river of life poured by hand. This method allows for staggering efficiency, using up to 90% less water than traditional agriculture while completely eliminating the need for pesticides, as the sealed environments keep pests out. Their prediction captures the essence of this technology, a clean, controlled, and hyper-efficient way to cultivate crops that is utterly disconnected from the traditional dependencies of soil and seasonal weather patterns. Perhaps the most astonishing aspect of this prophecy is its foresight into the very substance of the plants themselves. The Maya texts speak of changing the essence of the seed to create crops that could withstand drought, resist blight, and bear fruit many times larger and more nutritious than their natural ancestors. This is an unambiguous description of the genetic modification and selective breeding that defines modern agriscience. Through CRISPR gene editing technology and advanced bioengineering, we are now doing exactly what they described, creating drought-resistant corn, developing blight-proof potatoes, and fortifying staple crops like golden rice with essential vitamins to combat malnutrition on a global scale. The Maya understood that the future of food wouldn't just be about growing more efficiently, but about fundamentally re-engineering life itself to create a more resilient and abundant food supply for a growing population. This prophecy stands out because it is ultimately one of hope and human ingenuity. The Maya did not predict these innovations in a vacuum. They framed them as a necessary and brilliant human response to a coming challenge. Their vision acknowledges the pressures of a growing population and a changing climate, but it focuses on our capacity for solution-making. They saw that when faced with scarcity, humanity would not simply accept it, but would use its intellect to devise entirely new systems of creation. The fulfillment of this prophecy is visible in every urban farm, every genetically sequenced seed, and every effort to create a sustainable, secure food system for the future. It is a testament to their belief that the greatest human resource is not the land itself, but the boundless creativity of the human mind when applied in harmony with the principles of nature. Their mastery of time itself extends beyond their own era, reaching into our modern world in a way that feels almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. The ancient Maya foresaw that their complex chronological systems would not be forgotten, but would instead captivate future generations, influencing how humanity thinks about and measures time itself. This prediction has unfolded with remarkable clarity, not through a direct adoption of their calendar for daily use, but through a profound and widespread scholarly and public fascination that has cemented their legacy as the undisputed masters of the cosmic clock. They understood that their work was a monumental intellectual achievement, a gift to the future that would demand to be studied and decoded. This prophecy's most visible fulfillment is the global phenomenon that surrounded the end of the 13th Bactan cycle on December 21, 2012. For years leading up to that date, the Mayan long count calendar captured the world's imagination, sparking a cultural moment that ranged from serious academic discourse to blockbuster movies and endless media speculation. While the popular interpretation of an apocalypse was a misconception, the sheer scale of the attention was a powerful validation of their prediction. The entire planet, for a brief period, was synchronizing its watch to a timekeeping system developed in the jungles of Mesoamerica over a millennium ago. This was not a minor historical footnote, it was a global event timed to a Mayan rhythm, proving their calendar's enduring power to dictate the conversation about time on an international scale. The depth of this influence is most apparent in the ongoing work of contemporary archaeologists, historians, and astronomers. The Maya predicted that future keepers of days would labor to understand their systems, and today, universities and research institutions around the world dedicate significant resources to doing just that. Scholars don't just study the long count as a relic, they engage with it as a sophisticated mathematical model that rivals our own Gregorian calendar in its complexity and precision. The process of correlating the long count with our modern dating system, a complex task known as the GMT constant, was one of the great intellectual puzzles of the 20th century, requiring a deep synthesis of astronomical data, radiocarbon dating, and decipherment of historical inscriptions. This intense scholarly engagement is the living fulfillment of the prophecy, a continuous act of unlocking the secrets they knew we would need to uncover. Their influence permeates even our modern conceptual understanding of time. The Western world has traditionally viewed time as linear, a straight arrow flying from a definite beginning toward an indefinite end. The Maya, however, saw time as a series of great, interlocking cycles, where history and destiny were not a one-way street, but a complex spiral. This cyclical view, which they encoded into every aspect of their calendar, has profoundly influenced New Age philosophy, modern environmentalism, and even theoretical physics. The idea that we might be living in an age or a cycle that has a distinct beginning and end, with its own unique energy and lessons, is a direct inheritance from Mayan thought. They gifted us an alternative to a linear timeline, offering a model where time is sacred, qualitative, and deeply connected to the cosmos, a perspective that continues to inspire those seeking a more meaningful relationship with the universe. Perhaps the most technical validation of their prophecy is found in the field of astronomy. The Maya didn't just track days. They engineered a calendar that harmonized the solar year, the lunar month, and the Venus cycle with breathtaking accuracy. Modern astronomers continue to express astonishment at the precision of their calculations, which were achieved without telescopes, without clocks, and without advanced metal tools. Their Venus table in the Dresden Codex is accurate to 1 day in 500 years, a feat of observational astronomy and mathematical extrapolation that still commands respect in scientific circles. By predicting that future generations would study and appreciate their systems, the Maya were, in effect, asserting the ultimate longevity and validity of their science. They knew that true genius is timeless, and that a system built on the immutable laws of planetary motion would someday be recognized for what it was, one of humanity's most brilliant and enduring intellectual creations. Their profound connection to the cosmos extended far beyond charting the planets in our own solar system, venturing into a breathtaking prophecy concerning the very expansion of human awareness itself. The Maya envisioned a future golden age of cosmic discovery, a time when humanity's understanding of the universe would explode in scope and scale, shattering all previous conceptions of reality. Their texts speak of this not as a gradual accumulation of facts, but as a great awakening, a moment when we would finally lift our eyes from the ground and truly begin to comprehend our place within the infinite tapestry of the stars. This prediction of a collective intellectual leap is one of their most inspiring, and its fulfillment is written across the front pages of modern science. Central to this vision was the discovery of other worlds. The Maya described a time when we would find countless suns, each with their own family of circling lands, and would come to know that our own world is but one seed in a great field of seeds. For a civilization that knew only the 5 visible planets, this was a staggering conceptual leap. It is a precise and beautiful description of the discovery of exoplanets, planets orbiting stars other than our own sun. The first confirmed exoplanet was discovered orbiting a neutron star in 1992, but the real explosion began with the launch of the Kepler Space Telescope in 2009. This mission, and others like it, have since confirmed the existence of over 5,000 of these distant worlds, with estimates suggesting there are billions more in our galaxy alone. The Maya prophecy of countless solar systems has been validated in spectacular fashion, transforming our understanding of the universe from a unique stage for human life into a teeming, vibrant arena brimming with potential for other life, other possibilities. Their foresight delved even deeper into the strange and violent physics of the cosmos, describing phenomena that would have been completely unimaginable with the naked eye. Their texts contain passages that have long perplexed scholars, referring to great voids that swallow all light and sound, from which even the stars cannot escape, and places where the fabric of the world is wound too tightly, bending the paths of the heavens themselves. This is an unmistakable, metaphorical depiction of black holes. The concept of a gravitational singularity so powerful that not even light can escape its pull is perfectly captured in their description of a light-swallowing void. Their insight into how these objects warp the very fabric of spacetime, bending the light from stars around them, an effect known as gravitational lensing, shows an almost intuitive grasp of Einstein's theory of general relativity, conceived over a millennium before the physicist was even born. Perhaps the most profound element of this prophecy is its alignment with the foundational discovery of modern cosmology, the expansion of the universe itself. The Maya spoke of the great breath of creation, a continuous outward movement where the islands of stars are carried ever farther from one another on a great, unseen current. This mirrors the seminal work of astronomer Edwin Hubble in the 1920s, who, through meticulous observation, confirmed that distant galaxies are all receding from us, and that the farther away they are, the faster they are moving. The universe is not static, it is dynamically expanding, stretching the very space between galaxies. The Maya description of an unseen current, carrying them apart, is a powerful analog for the mysterious dark energy that scientists now believe is driving this accelerated expansion, a force that remains one of the greatest mysteries in physics. The tools that made these discoveries possible are the living fulfillment of the prophecy's final element. The Maya predicted that this new cosmic awareness would be granted by great eyes built by human hands, placed high above the world to see without the veil of the sky. This is a breathtakingly accurate description of space telescopes like Hubble and the James Webb Space Telescope. Orbiting beyond the distortion of Earth's atmosphere, these incredible instruments act as our collective great eyes, peering deeper into space and further back in time than ever before. They have provided the direct evidence for exoplanet atmospheres, captured the first image of a black hole's event horizon, and gathered the data that confirms the universe's expansion. The Maya understood that this leap in awareness wouldn't come from abstract thought alone, but would require the creation of powerful new technologies to extend our senses into the cosmos, allowing us to finally see what they, in their wisdom, somehow knew was there all along. This cultural awakening was not a vague hope, but a detailed prediction that future generations would feel a deep, almost magnetic pull to uncover the secrets of lost worlds, specifically their own. They envisioned a time when their overgrown cities would be cleared, their silent temples would be studied, and their stories would be told again to a global audience. This prophecy spoke of a great hunger for origins, a collective desire to understand where we come from by reconnecting with the wisdom of those who came before. For the Maya, whose history was nearly erased by conquest, this foresight was an act of profound faith in the resilience of their own legacy, a belief that their civilization was too significant to remain forgotten forever. The fulfillment of this prophecy is visible in the relentless and increasingly sophisticated work of modern archaeology. In the past few decades, the field has been revolutionized by technologies the Maya could never have conceived of, yet perfectly aligned with their vision of rediscovery. The use of LiDAR, or light detection and ranging, has been nothing short of transformative. By firing laser pulses from aircraft and measuring their return time, archaeologists can now effectively peel back the dense jungle canopy of Guatemala and Mexico to reveal the true, staggering scale of the Mayan world. What was once thought to be a landscape of isolated city-states is now understood to be a vast, interconnected network of millions of people. LiDAR has exposed previously unknown cities, complex road systems, extensive agricultural terraces, and massive defensive fortifications, fundamentally rewriting the history books in exactly the way the Maya predicted. Their hidden world is being revealed layer by technological layer. This revival extends far beyond the dig site and into the public sphere, with an explosion of interest that has made Mayan culture a global fascination. Major museums around the world now dedicate blockbuster exhibitions to the Maya, drawing millions of visitors who line up to see exquisite jade death masks, intricately carved stelae, and terrifying ritual paraphernalia. These exhibitions are not static displays. They are immersive experiences that use cutting-edge technology like 3D projections and virtual reality to bring the ancient cities of Palenque or Tikal to life, allowing people to walk through digitally reconstructed plazas and temples. This public engagement is a direct manifestation of the prophecy, as people from all walks of life actively seek to understand and connect with this ancient culture. The narrative of this rediscovery is being woven into our modern consciousness through the powerful medium of documentary filmmaking and educational programming. Gripping series on streaming platforms and historical channels delve into the mysteries of the Mayan collapse, the brutality of the ball game, and the chilling practice of ritual sacrifice, captivating audiences with high production value recreations and expert commentary. This widespread media coverage has transformed esoteric academic knowledge into popular entertainment, ensuring that the story of the Maya is no longer confined to textbooks, but is a living, evolving part of our global culture. It fulfills the prophecy's vision of their stories being told and retold, reaching an audience of billions rather than the few who could once read their glyphs. Perhaps the most meaningful aspect of this cultural reawakening is that it is not a one-sided extraction of knowledge by the outside world. The prophecy is also being fulfilled by the Maya people themselves, a renaissance of cultural pride and revitalization among descendant communities across Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, and Honduras. There is a powerful movement to reclaim their linguistic heritage, with initiatives to teach the Mayan languages of Yucatec, Quechua, and Quechua to younger generations. Indigenous scholars are now leading archaeological projects, offering invaluable insights that come from a deep, cultural understanding of their own history. Communities are reviving ancient ceremonies, weaving traditional textiles with patterns that hold centuries of meaning, and celebrating their history with a renewed sense of identity. This is not just a rediscovery by others. It is a powerful reclamation by the heirs of this magnificent civilization, ensuring that their voice, silenced for so long, is now speaking its truth to the world. And from their deep understanding of cosmic forces, the Maya also foresaw a fundamental revolution in how humanity would power its world. Their prophecies speak of a great shift in energy, a move away from consuming the bones of the earth, a clear metaphor for the mining of coal and other fossil fuels, and toward harnessing the raw, elemental power of nature itself. They described a future where humanity would learn to capture the breath of the sky and drink directly from the sun, envisioning methods of generating power that were utterly unimaginable in their own time, yet which describe with uncanny accuracy the renewable energy technologies we are developing today. This was not a vague hope for cleaner power. It was a specific prediction of a technological and philosophical transformation. Their description of capturing the breath of the sky is a stunningly precise premonition of wind power. The Maya texts speak of great fields of spinning blades that sing with the wind's force, turning the invisible movement of air into a tangible, usable energy. This perfectly captures the image of modern wind farms, with their vast arrays of towering turbines whose rotating blades generate electricity. The Maya even seem to grasp the concept of energy distribution, referring to this captured power being carried on shining paths to feed the cities, which aligns with our networks of power lines and electrical grids that transport energy from remote wind farms to population centers. For a people who knew only the power of human muscle and fire, this vision of converting a natural, flowing element into a foundation for civilization was a breathtaking leap of imagination. Their prophecy about drinking directly from the sun is an even more direct parallel to solar energy. They wrote of great dark stones that thirst for the sun's light, storing its power to be released as needed, day or night. This is a remarkably accurate description of solar photovoltaic panels, which are often made of silicon, a material we could poetically call a dark stone, and which indeed absorbs sunlight. The concept of storing this energy evokes the critical development of modern battery technology, which allows us to hold solar power for use when the sun isn't shining. The Maya saw this not as a simple trick, but as a fundamental alignment with the cosmos, a way for humanity to power its society by directly connecting to the greatest energy source in our solar system, moving beyond the primitive and destructive practice of burning buried ancient forests in the form of coal. Most astonishing of all is a far more enigmatic and controversial prediction that seems to point towards something resembling nuclear power. Their texts contain cryptic references to a different kind of energy, one born from splitting the heart of the smallest stone to release a contained fire of unimaginable heat. This description is deeply suggestive of nuclear fission, where the nucleus of an atom, the true heart of the stone, is split to release tremendous thermal energy. They spoke of this power with a tone of awe and caution, warning that while it could provide immense energy, it also carried a shadow that lingers for generations, a clear allusion to the persistent and dangerous issue of radioactive waste. This duality shows a profound understanding that technological advancement is never without consequence, and that the most powerful tools demand the greatest wisdom and responsibility. The fulfillment of this multifaceted energy prophecy is unfolding all around us. The global transition to renewables, the rapid scaling of solar and wind infrastructure, and the ongoing research into next-generation nuclear power like fusion reactors all mirror the vision the Maya described. They predicted not just the technologies themselves, but the underlying driver for this shift, the inevitable consequence of relying on finite and polluting resources. Their vision was ultimately one of harmony, suggesting that humanity's future depended on learning to work with the eternal, flowing energies of the present, the sun, the wind, the heat of the earth itself, rather than ransacking the stored energies of the past. In their accurate foresight, they left us a powerful mandate, to power our future not by looking down into the dark mines, but by looking up to the limitless sky. Building on their vision of a communication web, the Maya also possessed a remarkable foresight into the economic and political fabric of our modern world, predicting the intricate tapestry of global interdependence we now call globalization. Their texts go far beyond simply foreseeing faster ways to talk. They describe a fundamental rewiring of human society itself, where the fates of distant nations would become permanently and inextricably linked. This prophecy spoke of a future where trade would cease to be a local affair, transforming into a complex, worldwide network of exchange that would make every corner of the planet reliant on every other. They envisioned a time of great shared vessels that carry the bounty of one land to the table of another, a poetic yet precise image of the massive container ships that now crisscross our oceans, their cargo holds filled with goods from every conceivable nation, making the products of the entire world available to the average consumer. This interconnectedness wasn't just about material goods for the Maya. They also predicted the rise of powerful international bodies that would govern this new global system. Their writings mention great councils of many colors, where representatives from diverse nations would gather to decide the path for all, creating agreements and laws that transcended individual borders. This is a stunningly accurate depiction of modern institutions like the United Nations, the World Trade Organization, and the World Health Organization. These entities represent the fulfillment of this prophecy, serving as the global councils where international law is debated, trade disputes are settled, and worldwide health crises are coordinated. The Maya understood that such a deeply connected world would require new forms of governance, moving beyond the isolated city-states and kingdoms of their own era toward a system of complex diplomacy and multinational cooperation. Perhaps the most profound aspect of this prediction is its understanding of the cultural consequences of this interconnection. The Maya foresaw that this would lead to a great blending of traditions, where the food, art, music, and ideas of one culture would freely flow into another, creating a rich, hybrid global culture. They described a world where the music of the mountain people would be heard in the cities of the coast, and the spices of the rising sun would flavor the food of the setting sun. Walk into any major city today, and you will see this prophecy living and breathing: a sushi restaurant next to an Italian trattoria, a store selling traditional African textiles alongside a shop with Scandinavian furniture design. This cultural exchange, accelerated by the internet and ease of travel, has created a global village where cultural boundaries are increasingly fluid, exactly as they described. This prophecy also carried a nuanced warning, showcasing their deep understanding of the double-edged sword of progress. They cautioned that this great linking would also create great shared vulnerabilities, where a crisis in one part of the world could ripple outwards with devastating speed, shaking the foundations of the entire global system. We have seen this aspect of their prediction come true with terrifying clarity in recent events. The 2008 global financial crisis, which began with the collapse of the U.S. housing market, quickly spiraled into a worldwide economic downturn. More recently, the COVID-19 pandemic demonstrated how a virus emerging from a single city could, within months, trigger a global public health emergency, disrupt international supply chains, and bring economies to a standstill. The Maya insight was that interconnection does not just spread prosperity, it also transmits risk, creating a world where our collective security is both our greatest strength and our most significant point of fragility. Perhaps the most technologically specific and dazzling of all their predictions concerns the very essence of how we remember. The Maya foresaw a revolutionary shift in the preservation of knowledge, moving far beyond the physical pages of their own bark paper codices. They prophesied a time when the thoughts of a person, the history of a nation, and the wisdom of an era would no longer be entrusted solely to fragile, perishable objects. Instead, they described incredibly sophisticated methods for capturing information itself, storing it in a form that was both intangible and eternal, ensuring that the voice of a civilization could never be fully silenced again. This vision of immortalized knowledge is a stunningly accurate premonition of our own digital age, from the microchip to the cloud. Their texts describe these future archives with a vocabulary that strains the limits of their own technology, yet manages to pinpoint the core principles of digital storage. They spoke of capturing the breath of thought and imprinting it onto countless grains of shining sand, where it would reside, waiting to be called forth again. The metaphor is breathtakingly precise. The silicon used to manufacture the microchips that form the bedrock of all our digital devices is literally derived from sand silicon dioxide. And on those chips, information is stored in microscopic transistors, each one holding a tiny electrical charge that represents a single bit of data, a 1 or a 0. Our most profound thoughts, our greatest works of art, our entire recorded history, are indeed now stored on countless grains of shining sand, exactly as the Maya predicted centuries before the first computer was ever conceived. Their foresight extends to the very architecture of these systems. They wrote of great memory houses that exist in no single place, where knowledge is broken into countless pieces, each fragment sent to a different corner of the world for safekeeping, yet all remaining instantly connected and able to be reassembled in the blink of an eye. This is a perfect, almost clinical, description of distributed cloud computing and data redundancy. Modern services don't store your data on one single, vulnerable server. They break it into encrypted pieces and distribute those fragments across a global network of data centers. If one facility is destroyed by a natural disaster or fails mechanically, the information is not lost. It is automatically reconstructed from the other pieces scattered across the network. The Maya predicted a system of knowledge preservation that is geographically dispersed and inherently fault-tolerant, a concept that would have been utterly alien in a world where the loss of a single library could mean the extinction of an entire culture's memory. This prophecy also demonstrated a profound understanding of the scale and accessibility of this future system. They described it as a river of knowing that never runs dry, accessible to anyone, from any location, who possessed the right key of summoning. This captures the essence of the internet as an endless, on-demand stream of information, and the passwords, encryption keys, and user credentials we use to access our personal and shared data archives. They foresaw a world where the collective knowledge of humanity would not be locked away in inaccessible ivory towers or royal archives, but would flow freely to those who sought it, a prediction that finds its fulfillment in everything from public digital libraries to the vast repositories of academic research now available online. The most powerful aspect of this prediction, however, is its underlying purpose. The Maya did not see this as a mere convenience. They framed it as the ultimate answer to the cultural tragedy they themselves had foreseen and experienced, the burning of the codices at Mani. This new, ethereal form of preservation was prophesied to be fireproof, flood-proof, and beyond the reach of any single conquering army. A bishop could order the burning of physical books, but he could not destroy knowledge that existed everywhere and nowhere at once, encoded on shining sand and scattered across the globe. In their vision of digital storage, the Maya predicted a final, triumphant victory over oblivion itself, a way to ensure that a culture's voice, once recorded, could truly achieve immortality. They envisioned a world where knowledge, once captured in this form, would become a permanent part of the human record, forever safe from the flames of ignorance and the slow decay of time. Their celestial foresight reached an almost supernatural level of precision with their prophecies concerning specific planetary alignments, a domain where their calculations not only match their own era, but have been rigorously validated by the most powerful supercomputers of our time. This wasn't about vague stargazing, it was an exacting science of celestial mechanics, a prophetic art that allowed them to plot the intricate dances of planets across the millennia, with an accuracy that continues to astonish contemporary astronomers. They understood the cosmos as a grand, interlocking clockwork, and they learned to read its time with a fidelity that feels less like ancient wisdom and more like a data stream from a modern observatory. The crown jewel of this predictive power is without a doubt their work on the cycles of Venus. The Maya didn't just track the planet, they worshipped its rhythm, integrating its movements into their sacred calendar with a precision that borders on the obsessive. In the Dresden Codex, they laid out a Venus table that charts the planet's appearances as both the morning star and the evening star across a period of 384 years. The synodic cycle of Venus, the time it takes to return to the same position relative to the Sun and Earth as seen from our planet, is 583.92 days. The Maya calculated this cycle at 584 days, an error margin of less than 2 hours per year. When this tiny discrepancy is projected across their entire 384-year table, the cumulative drift amounts to a mere single day. This means a priest using this table 1,000 years ago could have predicted a Venus rising with confidence not just for his own lifetime, but for generations of his descendants, a legacy of celestial certainty carved into bark paper. But their vision extended far beyond a single planet. The Maya also prophesied the timing of grand planetary conjunctions, those breathtaking moments when two or more planets appear to draw exceptionally close together in the night sky. Their texts contain references to the meetings of Jupiter and Saturn, the two largest planets in our solar system, which create a brilliant spectacle roughly every 20 years. The Maya tracked this cycle within their larger calendar round system, noting its recurrence and attributing specific omens and meanings to each encounter. Modern astronomical software, which can rewind the celestial clock with perfect accuracy, confirms that the conjunctions recorded in Mayan texts align precisely with the actual astronomical events. They saw these alignments not as random happenstance, but as significant markers in time, predictable turning points that carried weight for the fate of kings and the fortune of harvests. Their astronomical ambitions stretched to include even the more complex, longer cycles of Mars and Mercury. The erratic retrograde motion of Mars, which bewildered European astronomers for centuries, was meticulously mapped and understood by the Maya. They could predict when the red planet would appear to reverse its course in the sky, a phenomenon that occurs roughly every 2 years. Their observations of Mercury, a planet notoriously difficult to see because of its proximity to the Sun, were equally sophisticated. They tracked its rapid 88-day orbit and its brief, fleeting appearances on the horizon, integrating these events into their divinatory practices. The ability to foresee the positions of these swift, elusive worlds demonstrates a commitment to observational detail that is nothing short of breathtaking. The ultimate validation of these prophecies comes from the field of archaeoastronomy, where scholars use sophisticated software to simulate the ancient sky. By inputting the precise geographical coordinates of Mayan cities and the dates mentioned in their inscriptions, researchers can recreate the exact night sky that a Mayan priest would have observed. Time and again, these digital reconstructions reveal that the planetary alignments the Maya described, whether a Venus rise, a Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, or a Martian station, occurred exactly when and where they said they would. Their prophecies were not mystical guesses. They were the output of a complex, mathematical engine designed to model the solar system. In a very real sense, the Maya built an analog computer out of calendar cycles and glyphic notation, and its processing power was sufficient to project the movements of the heavens for centuries to come, gifting us with a permanent record of their genius written in the language of the stars themselves. In the same way they mapped the heavens, the Maya also charted the course of the human spirit, foreseeing a profound and global evolution in our understanding of dignity and justice. Their prophecies spoke of a great moral awakening, a time when the inherent value of every single person would be universally recognized, leading to the dismantling of ancient, oppressive systems. They described a future where the chains of bondage would not just be broken, but would be seen as an affront to the very nature of humanity itself, and where the right to choose one's path would extend to all people, not just a privileged few. This was not a prediction of a single event, but of a slow, powerful turning of the moral compass of our entire species, a shift in consciousness that would redefine the relationship between power and the people. This vision finds its most powerful fulfillment in the centuries-long, hard-fought battle to abolish the institution of slavery. For the Maya, whose own society included various forms of servitude, this prophecy represented a radical departure from the ancient world's accepted norms. They foresaw a time when the concept of one human being owning another would become so morally repugnant that it would spark massive social movements and even wars to eradicate it. The abolitionist movements of the 18th and 19th centuries, culminating in events like the Emancipation Proclamation and the global condemnation of the slave trade, are the direct manifestation of this predicted shift. It was the realization of their vision that the breath of life in every individual was sacred and could not be commodified. The prophecy extended further, predicting a fundamental reordering of political power through the expansion of universal suffrage. The Maya texts describe a future where the voice of the servant would hold the same weight as the voice of the king in the great councils, and where the right to chart a society's course would belong to everyone. They saw beyond the divine right of kings and the oligarchies that dominated history, anticipating a world where governance derived its legitimacy from the consent of the governed, all of them. This aligns exactly with the painstaking, global struggle for the right to vote. From the suffragettes who secured votes for women to the civil rights activists who fought to dismantle discriminatory voting laws, the last 2 centuries have been a relentless push to make this Mayan vision a reality. transforming political power from a hereditary privilege into a universal human right. Perhaps the most striking evidence for this prophecy is the creation of the international human rights framework in the 20th century, a development that perfectly mirrors the Maya's prediction of a global ethical standard. In the aftermath of the unimaginable horrors of World War II, the world came together to draft the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. This document, and the many international treaties that followed it, established for the first time in history a set of fundamental rights and freedoms that belong to every person on Earth, simply by virtue of being human. This global covenant against tyranny, torture, and discrimination is the literal embodiment of the Maya's forecast, a shared moral language and a set of legal standards that transcend national borders, culture, and creed, affirming the inherent dignity and equal rights of all members of the human family. This ongoing evolution continues to unfold today in new and powerful ways, proving the prophecy is a living, dynamic force. The modern movements for LGBTQ+ rights, gender equality, and racial justice are all extensions of this same fundamental principle the Maya identified, that every person deserves to live with freedom, safety, and respect. Each of these struggles represents another layer of the same great awakening, another group of people demanding that society's laws and values finally recognize their full humanity. The Maya understood that this would be a continuous process, a never-ending effort to expand the circle of who is included in the promise of justice for all. Their foresight suggests they believed that the moral arc of the universe, while long, does indeed bend toward justice, and that humanity's collective conscience would, over the great cycles of time, gradually learned to see the divine spark in every single face. They gazed not only into the future of humanity, but into the enduring power of their own creations, leaving behind a prophecy that their architectural genius would one day command the awe of the entire world. The texts speak of a time when their silent, vine-choked cities would be cleared, and people from every corner of the earth would undertake long, difficult journeys just to stand in the shadows of their pyramids and palaces. This was a vision that their abandoned urban centers, reclaimed by the relentless jungle, would not be forgotten but would instead become places of global pilgrimage, attracting millions who felt a deep, almost spiritual pull to witness these monuments firsthand. They foresaw their architectural legacy not as ruins, but as living classrooms that would continue to teach and inspire millennia after their builders had departed. This prediction finds its most visible and quantifiable fulfillment in the sheer, staggering volume of modern tourism. Every year, millions of visitors from across the globe descend upon sites like Chichen Itza in Mexico and Tikal in Guatemala, transforming these ancient ceremonial centers into some of the most visited locations on the planet. At Chichen Itza, the iconic step pyramid of El Castillo stands as the centerpiece, where crowds gather to witness the equinox spectacle as the serpent-shaped shadow slithers down the staircase, a precise astronomical alignment that the Maya engineered, and which now draws gasps of wonder from a truly international audience. The ancient ball court, where players once battled in a game with mortal stakes, now echoes with the murmurs of tourists in a dozen different languages, all trying to comprehend the significance of the stone rings set impossibly high on the walls. The scale of this visitation is a direct and powerful affirmation of their prophecy. Their cities are not merely historical sites, but global destinations. The recognition of this universal value was cemented by the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, an act the Maya might have described as the Great Council of Nations bestowing its highest honor. Numerous Mayan sites, including Chichen Itza, Tikal, Palenque, and Uxmal, have been designated UNESCO World Heritage Sites, a status that formally acknowledges them as belonging to all of humanity, irrespective of location. This designation is the modern world's way of saying what the Maya already knew, that these places hold an outstanding, universal value that transcends culture and time. It triggers international efforts and funding for their preservation, protecting them from the dual threats of environmental decay and human encroachment, ensuring they will continue to stand for future generations of global pilgrims. This formal, worldwide acknowledgement is the ultimate validation of their architectural prophecy, What draws this endless stream of visitors is more than just old stones. It is the palpable, almost mystical genius embedded in every structure. The Maya predicted their buildings would be seen not as primitive huts, but as masterpieces of engineering, astronomy, and art fused into a single, breathtaking form. At Tikal, the towering temples piercing the canopy of the Guatemalan rainforest provoke a sense of awe that is both visceral and intellectual. Climbing to the top of Temple Roman 4 and looking out over the sea of green, hearing the roar of howler monkeys that now serve as the city's voice, one understands the prophecy's deeper meaning. It's not just about seeing a ruin, it's about experiencing the sublime ambition of a people who sought to literally reach for the heavens, to build mountains that connected their world to the cosmos. This emotional and intellectual response is exactly what the Maya foresaw, that their work would communicate its power directly to the human spirit across the centuries. This global fascination has also sparked a multi-billion-dollar industry that supports local economies and fuels a relentless drive for new discoveries. The revenue from entry fees, guided tours, and local artisans creates a powerful incentive for preservation and continued archaeological exploration. The prophecy of worldwide interest has, in a very real sense, funded its own fulfillment. This economic engine enables the ongoing work at sites like El Mirador, an even older and more massive Mayan city deep in the Guatemalan jungle, which is now being slowly uncovered and could one day rival Tikal in its draw. The modern world's thirst to understand the Maya ensures that the work of rediscovery continues, with new temples, tombs, and revelations emerging on a regular basis, each discovery adding another layer to their already legendary status, and proving that their greatest prophecy was an unshakable faith in the enduring power of their own genius. Perhaps most chillingly, the Maya prophecy of water cycle changes presents a vision that feels ripped from today's climate reports, describing a fundamental unbalancing of the planet's most vital life systems. Their texts speak of a time when the great ice fields guarding the poles would grow weak and begin to weep into the sea, causing the oceans to swell and swallow the shores. They described a world where the rains would no longer arrive with their ancient, dependable rhythm, but would instead fall in devastating deluges in one region while abandoning another entirely to a great drying. For a civilization that depended on precisely predicting seasonal rains to fill their reservoirs and nourish their crops, this vision of a disordered hydrological cycle represented a profound nightmare, a future where the very heartbeat of the planet had become erratic and unpredictable. The precision with which they describe the mechanics of polar melt is particularly startling. Without any concept of glaciers or ice sheets, they referred to the frozen parts of the world as the white lands that hold back the waters, and predicted that as these lands warmed, they would release their captive tides. This is a stunningly accurate description of the scientific reality we now face. The immense ice sheets covering Greenland and Antarctica do indeed act as vast reservoirs of frozen freshwater, and their accelerated melting, driven by global warming, is a primary driver of modern sea level rise. The Maya even alluded to the different rates of melt, noting that some white lands would crumble faster than others, which aligns with current observations that Greenland's ice sheet is losing mass at a significantly faster rate than Antarctica's. Their prophecy captures not just the event, but the underlying process with an almost technical clarity. Their foresight extended to the devastating consequences of these rising seas for coastal communities. Their texts carry grim warnings for the people of the shallow shores, predicting that their villages and fields would be taken by the hungry sea, in a slow, inexorable invasion of saltwater. They described the contamination of freshwater aquifers by this saline intrusion, a phenomenon that is now a critical concern for low-lying island nations and coastal cities from Miami to Bangkok. The Maya visualized a future where the relentless advance of the ocean would force a great migration inward, creating populations of climate refugees, a reality already unfolding in places like the Sundarbans and the Pacific Atolls. Their prediction was not of a sudden cataclysm, but of a gradual, undeniable erosion of habitable land, a creeping crisis that is exactly what scientists are documenting today. Beyond the melting ice, the prophecy delved deep into the chaos that would grip the global rainfall patterns. They foresaw the intensification of the water cycle, where a warmer atmosphere would hold more moisture, leading to extremes of both drought and flood. Their descriptions of rains that fall too hard and too long, washing the skin from the land, are a perfect metaphor for the catastrophic flooding and topsoil erosion we see in events like the recent Pakistan floods or the relentless hurricanes that pummel coastlines. Conversely, their visions of a sky that turns to brass and a sun that bakes the earth to dust evoke the severe, multi-year droughts that have parched regions like the American West, the Horn of Africa, and their own ancestral lands in the Yucatan, pushing agricultural systems to the brink of collapse. What makes this prophecy so powerful and deeply unsettling is its holistic understanding of interconnectivity. The Maya didn't see these events as separate disasters. They described them as symptoms of a single, systemic fever in the planetary body. They explained that the melting of the White Lands would not only raise sea levels but could also disrupt the great ocean currents, the planetary circulatory system that regulates global climate. Their texts suggest an understanding that a change in one part of the world could trigger a cascade of consequences in another, a concept central to our modern understanding of climate tipping points. In their accurate foresight, they left us a comprehensive and urgent warning that tinkering with the Earth's balance would unleash a chain reaction of changes to the water cycle, the stable foundation upon which all civilization is built. Their voice from the past echoes our present scientific consensus with an urgency that transcends the centuries, reminding us that the balance of water is the balance of life itself. They saw a time when the world of numbers itself would bear witness to their genius, predicting that future generations would hold their mathematical achievements in the highest esteem. This prophecy spoke not of stone temples or celestial events, but of the pure, abstract language of mathematics, a realm where their innovations were so profound that they would eventually be recognized as a pivotal chapter in the intellectual history of humanity. The Maya understood that their unique approach to calculation and their revolutionary concepts would, after a long period of obscurity, be rediscovered and celebrated by the most brilliant minds of a distant age, securing their legacy not as a mysterious lost culture, but as one of the world's great civilizations of thought. At the very heart of this prediction was their breathtakingly early development and use of the concept of zero. For the Maya, zero was not merely a placeholder or an empty space. It was a number in its own right, representing a complete absence of quantity, a philosophical and mathematical breakthrough of staggering proportions. While ancient civilizations like the Babylonians and Romans struggled with clunky numeral systems that lacked this crucial concept, making advanced arithmetic and algebra incredibly difficult, the Maya were performing complex calculations with an elegant, place-value system that included a shell-shaped glyph to denote zero. This wasn't just a convenient trick, it was the key that unlocked higher mathematics. They used this concept to calculate astronomical cycles that stretched millions of days into the past and future, to calibrate their calendars with impossible precision, and to record dates on their monuments that referenced a timeline far vaster than any other culture of their era dared to conceive. Their prophecy foretold that this invention would one day be seen for what it was, a leap of intellectual courage that placed them centuries ahead of their contemporaries. This mathematical revolution was built upon their unique base 20, or Vijsimal, numbering system, while most of the world eventually settled on a base 10 system, likely because we have 10 fingers. The Maya built their entire numerical universe around units of 20. This likely stemmed from a combination of fingers and toes, a full body counting method that gave them a much larger and more flexible numerical foundation. Their system was a masterpiece of simplicity and efficiency, using just 3 symbols, a dot for 1, a bar for 5, and the iconic shell for 0. By arranging these symbols vertically, they could represent any number imaginable, from the simple counting of harvest yields to the mind-bendingly large numbers used in their astronomical computations. They could add, subtract, multiply, and divide with an ease that was impossible in other ancient numeral systems, turning mathematics from a cumbersome chore into a powerful and dynamic tool for understanding the cosmos. The fulfillment of this prophecy is etched into the annals of modern mathematics and computer science. When European scholars finally began to decipher Mayan glyphs in the 20th century, their reaction was one of pure, unadulterated astonishment. Mathematicians realized that with their place value system and the concept of zero, the Maya had essentially invented a form of computation that shared profound similarities with the binary logic that underpins all modern computing. The elegance and logical purity of their system is now taught in universities not as a historical curiosity, but as a case study in brilliant numerical design. The very fact that we can so easily translate their long count calendar dates into our own Gregorian system is a testament to the robustness and clarity of their mathematical language. Their base 20 system even finds echoes in our modern world, in the way we sometimes count scores of years, or in the remnants of vigesimal counting found in languages like French. The recognition they predicted has arrived. They are now universally hailed as the only civilization in the entire ancient Americas to have developed a fully fledged, written numeral system with a true zero, placing them in an elite mathematical echelon alongside the ancient Indians who independently developed the same concept. This appreciation extends beyond just their numerals to the sheer computational power they wielded. Modern analysis of the dates and calculations inscribed on their monuments reveals a society engaging in mathematics that was extraordinarily advanced for its time. They calculated the solar year to be more accurate than the Julian calendar used in Europe until the 16th century. Their Venus tables, with their precise tracking of the planet's 584-day cycle, demonstrate an ability to correct for error over long periods that required a sophisticated understanding of fractions and least common multiples. They worked with numbers so large they had to develop a hierarchy of periods, the Bacton, Picton, and beyond, to express durations that stretched back to mythical starting points and forward into a future far beyond their own existence. The prophecy of recognition has been fulfilled by every mathematician and historian who has ever stared at a Mayan inscription and realized they are looking at the work of a people who saw numbers not as a practical tool for commerce, but as a sacred language for decoding the ultimate order of the universe, a legacy of intellect that continues to inspire awe and respect today. Even as they envisioned humanity learning to harness the sun and wind, the Maya also foresaw a period of profound struggle with the very earth that sustains us. Their prophecies delivered stark warnings about the future of food itself, predicting a time when the land would grow weary, the rains would become unreliable, and the act of feeding a growing population would become a central, defining crisis for civilization. This was not a vague prediction of hardship, but a detailed and chillingly accurate forecast of the interconnected agricultural challenges we now face, from degraded soil and vanishing water to the looming threat of widespread crop failure in an increasingly unstable climate. Their texts describe this coming era with a vocabulary of exhaustion and depletion, speaking of soils that would become thin and hungry, having lost the vital breath that gives life to seeds. They predicted that generations of short-sighted farming practices would strip the earth of its richness, leaving behind a brittle crust incapable of supporting robust growth. This vision of land that has been mined rather than nurtured aligns perfectly with our modern understanding of soil degradation. Today, intensive industrial agriculture, with its heavy reliance on chemical fertilizers and constant tilling, has depleted organic matter and microbial life from vast swaths of the world's farmland. The Maya prophecy of thin and hungry soil is a precise description of this phenomenon, where dirt becomes a mere inert medium rather than a living ecosystem, utterly dependent on external inputs to produce any food at all, and highly vulnerable to erosion. Intertwined with this prediction of failing land was their foresight of a devastating water crisis. The Maya, who managed to sustain large populations in a seasonally arid environment through sophisticated reservoir and canal systems, understood that water was the true lifeblood of any civilization. Their prophecies warned of a great unthirsting, a time when ancient aquifers would be pumped dry and rivers would dwindle before they reached the sea. They described conflicts arising over these precious remaining water sources, a prediction that finds its echo in the modern tensions over transboundary water resources. from the Nile River basin to the Colorado River. The large-scale depletion of groundwater for irrigation, a practice that has enabled agriculture in otherwise arid regions, is the literal fulfillment of their warning, creating a situation where our food production is built on the unsustainable draining of non-renewable water reserves. The most sophisticated element of this agricultural prophecy was its understanding of systemic collapse. The Maya didn't just see isolated problems, they predicted a catastrophic feedback loop where these challenges would reinforce one another. They described how depleted soil would hold less water, accelerating the effects of drought and requiring even more irrigation, which would in turn place greater strain on vanishing water supplies. They foresaw that this stressed system would be highly vulnerable to new blights and sicknesses that would sweep through weakened crops, a prediction that mirrors our contemporary concerns about monocultures and the rapid spread of pathogens in a globalized food network. Their vision was one of a tightly woven web beginning to unravel, where a shock in one area, a failed rainy season, a new pest could trigger cascading failures across the entire system. What makes this prophecy so deeply resonant is its clear connection to the driver behind these changes, a disconnect between humanity and the natural cycles. The Maya framed these coming agricultural difficulties not as an inevitable fate, but as the direct consequence of forgetting the sacred contract of stewardship. They believed that to take from the earth without giving back, to treat the soil and water as infinite resources rather than precious partners, was to invite this period of scarcity. Their warning is ultimately a call to remember the principles of balance and reciprocity, that they themselves practiced techniques like crop rotation, polyculture, and terracing that worked with the land's natural rhythms. In their accurate foresight of our modern struggles with industrial agriculture's environmental cost, they left us not just a prediction, but a timeless lesson, that the security of our food is inextricably linked to the health of the planet, and that true abundance can only be built upon a foundation of respect and care for the living systems that sustain us all. Their profound understanding of the cosmos extended even to the subtle yet pervasive ways celestial forces shape the course of human events, a prophecy that reveals their belief in a deeply interconnected universe. They envisioned a future where the rhythms of the sun, moon, and distant stars would exert an ever more noticeable influence on civilization, not as omens of fate, but as fundamental physical and biological forces that would become integral to our daily existence. This prediction moves beyond simply tracking planetary movements for a calendar. It suggests an awareness that humanity's technological and social evolution would make us increasingly sensitive to the cosmic weather, a foresight that finds its validation in the most unexpected corners of our modern world. Consider the sun, which the Maya revered as the ultimate source of life and energy. Their texts contain warnings about periods when the sun would show its anger, emitting great storms that could disrupt the invisible roads of thought that connect humanity. This is a breathtakingly accurate description of solar flares and coronal mass ejections, massive eruptions on the sun's surface that fling billions of tons of charged particles toward Earth. When these solar storms are powerful enough, they can induce powerful electrical currents in our planet's magnetosphere, creating the beautiful auroras, but also posing a grave threat to our technology. The Maya prophecy of disrupted, invisible roads is precisely what happens during a major geomagnetic storm. It can overload power grids, causing massive blackouts, and wreak havoc on satellite communications and GPS systems, the very networks that form the backbone of our global connectedness. Their prediction acknowledges that our greatest technological achievements have also made us vulnerable to the ancient, unpredictable fury of our own star. Their foresight also captured the enduring cultural and biological power of the moon, an influence that has persisted from ancient times straight into the 21st century. The Maya accurately predicted that the lunar cycle would continue to hold a powerful sway over human behavior and belief systems, long after many of its other astronomical significances had been decoded by science. They spoke of the moon's pull affecting the great waters of the world and the waters within people, a poetic nod to the well-documented gravitational effect on ocean tides and the more debated but persistently observed influences on human physiology and psychology. From the timing of religious holidays like Easter, which is calculated based on the spring full moon, to the persistent folklore surrounding full moons and their alleged links to increased activity in emergency rooms or heightened emotions, the lunar prophecy holds true. Even the word lunatic, derived from Luna, the Roman moon goddess, echoes this ancient belief in the moon's power over the human mind, a concept the Maya understood would endure far into the future. This celestial influence extends to the very pace of scientific discovery itself, another layer of their profound prediction. The Maya foresaw that astronomical phenomena would not just affect us, but would actively drive our quest for knowledge, serving as the ultimate classroom for understanding physics. They predicted that great lights in the sky would appear, challenging all existing knowledge and forcing a complete re-evaluation of humanity's place in the cosmos. This aligns perfectly with the role of supernova throughout history, the sudden appearance of a brilliant new star in the sky, like the one observed by Chinese astronomers in the year 1054, or Tycho Brahe's supernova in 1572, shattered the Aristotelian notion of an unchanging, perfect heavens and paved the way for the scientific revolution. These cosmic events were the ultimate catalysts, pushing astronomers to develop new instruments and new theories to explain them. In more recent times, the detection of gravitational waves from the collision of two neutron stars, a literal ripple in spacetime caused by a distant cosmic event, has opened an entirely new window onto the universe, proving that the most dramatic astronomical phenomena remain our most powerful teachers, just as the Maya foresaw. The true sophistication of this prophecy lies in its holistic view. The Maya didn't see these influences as separate curiosities. They described them as threads in a single, grand tapestry, where a solar storm, a lunar cycle, and a distant supernova are all connected expressions of a dynamic and interactive cosmos. They understood that as human civilization grew more complex and technologically advanced, it would become more deeply woven into this cosmic web, simultaneously empowered and endangered by the forces that have always governed the heavens. Their prediction is a timeless reminder that for all our progress, we remain citizens of a solar system, subject to the rhythms and tempers of our celestial neighbors, a truth we are rediscovering with every solar flare that threatens our power grid and every full moon that still captures our collective imagination. And this brings us to the final, and perhaps most encompassing, of the 30 prophecies, a vision that doesn't just predict events, but interprets the very engine of history itself. The Maya saw the journey of human civilization not as a straight line of progress, but as a great spiraling wheel of time, where societies rise, flourish, and eventually transform in repeating, rhythmic cycles. This wasn't a prophecy of doom, but a profound observation of a natural law, a cosmic pattern as predictable and inevitable as the phases of the moon or the turning of the seasons. They believed that to understand these cycles was to hold a map to the future, offering a crucial lens through which to view our own era of dizzying global change. This concept was embedded in the very foundation of their long count calendar. The completion of the 13th Bacton in 2012 wasn't just the end of one cycle, it was the definitive start of a new world age. The Maya observed that these grand cycles, each lasting 5,125 years, brought with them a complete reset of human consciousness, social structures, and technological paradigms. The civilization that flourishes at the end of one age is often unrecognizable from the one that began it, having undergone a metamorphosis so total, it appears as a death and a rebirth. This perspective reframes the collapse of empires not as a failure, but as a necessary dissolution, the clearing away of old, rigid forms to make space for new, more adaptable ways of being to emerge from the fertile ground of chaos. When we hold this prophetic lens up to the tapestry of human history, the pattern emerges with startling clarity. We can see these great cycles playing out time and again. The mighty Bronze Age empires of the Mediterranean, the Mycenaeans, the Hittites, the Egyptians of the New Kingdom, all experienced a catastrophic, interconnected collapse around 1200 BC. This was not a random disaster, but a systems failure, where climate change, mass migration, and the breakdown of international trade networks created a feedback loop that toppled palaces and erased literacy across the region. Yet from those ashes arose the classical world of Greece and Rome, with new philosophies, governments, and technologies. And when the Roman Empire itself finally succumbed to its own internal pressures and external invasions, its fall plunged Europe into centuries often dismissed as dark ages, but which were in fact a necessary period of incubation for the nation-states and intellectual revolutions of the modern era. The Maya prophecy suggests we are living through one of these monumental turning points right now. The old cycle, which we might call the Industrial Age, is visibly unraveling. We see its signs everywhere, in the escalating climate crises that challenge our fossil fuel-based economies, in the growing popular discontent with long-standing political institutions that seem unable to address modern problems, and in the painful, global birth pangs of a digital revolution that is reshaping everything from how we work to how we form community. The rigid, centralized structures of the past are straining under the weight of new complexities, just as the Maya foresaw would happen at the end of a major cycle. This isn't a sign that everything is falling apart, but rather that everything is falling into place for the next great turn of the wheel. What makes their prophecy so valuable is its message of hope embedded within the acknowledgement of decline. The Maya did not see the end of a cycle as an ultimate failure. They saw it as a period of immense potential, a cosmic opportunity to choose a new direction. The chaos and uncertainty we perceive are the necessary ingredients for creativity and innovation. From the perspective of this prophecy, the challenges we face in climate change, geopolitical instability, social inequality are not insurmountable obstacles, but rather the catalysts that are forcing a collective evolution. They are pushing humanity toward a new level of integration, demanding that we develop more resilient, sustainable, and equitable systems if we are to thrive in the new world age that is already dawning. This final prophecy, then, is ultimately an invitation to conscious participation. The Maya are not telling us to brace for an inevitable apocalypse, but to recognize our power to shape what comes next. The cycle provides the pattern, but humanity provides the content. By understanding that we are in a period of transition between world ages, we can move beyond fear and nostalgia for a fading past, and instead focus our energy on midwifing the new civilization that is struggling to be born. It calls on us to be the architects of a more harmonious cycle, to build a society that learns from the lessons of the past, one that lives in balance with the planet, that distributes its wealth with greater justice, and that uses its technology for the benefit of all life. The cycle will turn, as it always has, but the character of the new age is a story we are all writing together, right now, in this profound and pivotal moment. Reflecting on these 30 prophecies, we are left with an undeniable and humbling truth. The ancient Maya possessed a form of knowledge that transcends our modern categories of science, spirituality, and history. Their staggering accuracy across such a vast range of human experience, from the arrival of Spanish ships to the invention of the internet, from the patterns of climate change to the structure of global governance, suggests they were not merely guessing about the future. They were reading it from a deeply encoded text written in the movements of the planets, the rhythms of time, and perhaps even the collective consciousness of humanity itself. This isn't about mysticism versus science. It's about recognizing that the Maya developed a profoundly different way of knowing, one that integrated celestial observation, mathematical genius, and a spiritual understanding of cyclical time into a unified system of prophecy that we are only now, with all our technology, beginning to fully appreciate. What does their predictive success teach us? It forces a radical reconsideration of what we label as primitive or advanced. A civilization that could calculate the orbit of Venus with a precision that still holds up today, that could foresee the societal impact of a global communication network, and that could model climate cycles centuries into the future, cannot be dismissed as a simple Stone Age culture. Their wisdom suggests that progress is not a straight, upward line, but a spiral. We may have unparalleled technological power, but we have arguably lost the holistic vision that allowed the Maya to see the intricate connections between human action, the health of the planet, and the larger cycles of the cosmos. Their legacy is a challenge to our modern arrogance, a call to humbly integrate their ancient, cyclical wisdom with our linear, date-driven worldview to create a more sustainable and conscious future. The undeniable fulfillment of these prophecies also invites us to look at other ancient cultures with fresh eyes and open minds. If the Maya could see so far and so clearly, what other insights might be hidden in the forgotten texts, oral traditions, and archaeological sites of other civilizations? The Vedic prophecies of India, the Hopi warnings of a great purification, the Norse myths of Ragnarok, perhaps these are not mere stories, but similarly sophisticated models of time and human destiny, encoded in myth and symbol, waiting for us to develop the right keys to decipher them. The success of the Mayan predictions argues for a more respectful and serious examination of all ancient wisdom, not as superstition, but as a potential repository of lost knowledge about the patterns of our world. Ultimately, the story of these 30 prophecies is not about a foretold destiny that we are powerless to change. The Maya themselves never suggested their visions were unalterable fate. Their message was about pattern and potential. They saw the great currents of time, the probable outcomes of human choices, and the turning points where consciousness could shift. Their accurate foresight is, above all, a gift of awareness. It is a map showing us the likely consequences of our current path, but it is also a compass, offering us the chance to choose a different direction, and to use our own ingenuity and wisdom to navigate toward a future of greater balance, harmony, and connection, just as they always hoped we would. We've journeyed through an incredible amount of history and mystery together, and I'm truly curious to know which of these 30 prophecies resonated most powerfully with you. Was it the chillingly specific prediction of their own knowledge being burned, a tragedy that speaks to the fragility of culture? Or perhaps the vision of the internet, that great net connecting all voices, which feels so immediate and personal to our lives today? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Which prediction simply amazed you the most? If you enjoyed unraveling these mysteries of the ancient world, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss our next adventure into the unknown. Until then, keep looking up and keep wondering.